Welcome to Keep What You Earn, your judgment and jargon-free zone for entrepreneurs of all levels. Get ready to learn how to scale your business, save money in taxes, and create a business that grows your wealth. If it feels like the financial side of business is like eating your vegetables, well, then think of this podcast as the ranch dressing to make the process a little more enjoyable. My name is Shannon Weinstein. I'm a CPA and business owner on a mission to simplify money and empower others through knowledge. I hope this episode inspires you to take action, but remember that the information we share is for educational purposes only and is not individual tax advice. Now that we got that out of the way, let's start the show. Hey, welcome back to the show. So you're joining us during a series we're doing right now where we are replaying some of the top guest episodes from 2024 as a big thank you to you and to our guests for being epic and listening to our show all year round. I wanted to share with you some of the most popular guest episodes that you may not have heard yet. So let's dive in and get to our next guest episode. As entrepreneurs, we get caught up in the here and now all the time with our businesses. We're so focused on putting out fires and dealing with the immediate needs of our business that it feels like we can never catch up far enough to actually plan for the future or set up the proper systems and processes. Even if we have the best intentions of doing it, it's so hard to bring that away from the back burner and to actually deal with it. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about how to optimize your systems and processes by using different frameworks and different technologies that you can do to make this process a little easier to implement. And I'm excited to introduce you to today's guest, who is Mike Abramowitz. Now, Mike has over 20 years of experience training over 5,000 sales reps, has 9 books in self-help, and he's scaled several 6-figure businesses and nonprofits to be run without him so that he can experience time freedom that he desires. And he's going to tell you a bit of that story today on how he was able to remove himself from his businesses for 8 whole months, guys, dealing with a family matter, and was able to not sacrifice any profit in the process. He also has a podcast called The Better Than Rich Show and has a community called Automate, Delegate, Systematize. And he's a full believer of the power of systems. We're going to dive deep into AI, how we can begin using AI within our systems, different technologies, and the way we use our teams, and how all of this ties into an optimized system for your business. Let's dive in. Hey, Mike, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, Shannon.
Thanks for being here. Could you just say hello to everybody listening and let them know who you are and what you do?
Well, hello, everybody listening. I'm Mike Abramowitz. I'm in St. Augustine, Florida, newly just relocated from Tampa. And I mainly help busy, overwhelmed thought leaders, entrepreneurs, business owners, help them systemize their business, leverage delegation and automation so they could buy back their time and then reinvest that time to what matters most to them.
I got to say, I don't think I've met a business owner, thought leader, entrepreneur that wasn't overwhelmed or didn't need to do exactly this and buy back their time. I think that if you find someone who isn't struggling with that, I think they're lying. So I think this is a wonderful person that you can serve. Now, let's talk about how, when you talk about buy back your time, I know you have Dan Martell's book behind you, but for those who haven't read it or aren't familiar with the concept of what that expression means, can you just kind of elaborate on that?
Yes. If you're not familiar with Dan Martell's book, highly recommend it. I've read it twice, listened to it twice. It's become my blueprint during the last maybe 15 months or so of my life, because the core of the message that he's saying is, if you know what your time is worth, then everything else that's underneath that dollar per hour or anything else that's beneath the energetic of that dollar per hour should get offloaded. And we leverage our time to do the high value activities, and then anything else that's below our genius or below our high value activities needs to get offloaded to somebody else, starting with admin and then marketing and then client success and fulfillment, then sales and then leadership. And when we could buy back our time in that order using some of those principles, well, not only are we going to be able to have a more fulfilling life, spending time in our genius as thought leaders, but we're also going to be able to provide more high quality work because people are owning those tasks that maybe might bring them energy, whereas the entrepreneur or the thought leader might drain our energy, like doing, I don't want to say mindless tasks, but doing like tedious work like copy paste or sending inbox, managing the inbox or responding to this email, or any type of data entry work or managing the CRM, like any of those types of things. It has to get done, but does it have to get done by the thought leader? Probably not. So that's my interpretation of his work.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. And it's something that I think a lot of experts and a lot of thought leaders struggle with is because they want to design how it's done and they want it done their way, or they know they're the best position to do it the right quote unquote way. But I also subscribe to this belief that someone had said before that if someone can do it 80% as good as you can, you should offload it and you should open up your capacity to do other things that are more revenue driving or value driving for you, like you said, energetically. Do you agree?
Oh, that's in the book. 80% done by someone else is
Yeah.
100% awesome. And that's a Dan Martell quote I say quite
Oh,
frequently.
okay.
Yeah. But the concept is also, he calls it a 10-80-10. So it's like 10% started by me, middle 80% done by someone else. And then the final 10%, I'll just finish up those touches. So it's like every time there's a project that's happening, whether it's like, for me specifically, I'll give you a real example. I'll give you a personal example and I'll give you like a business example. Personal example. We just moved into our new home and there's a couple things around the house that we wanted done. So I found a home organizer. What did I do? The first 10%, I was like, I kind of want my home office set up a certain way. I did the first 10%, kind of moved some stuff around, put some boxes. She did the full middle 80%. I paid her 75 an hour, which is below my dollar per hour wage, to organize my office, put my books where I want them to be, organize the desk, all the pictures. And then I came in and did the last finishing touches of the final 10% of like fixing it the way I want. But that middle $75 an hour is in the middle allowed me to spend time over here at my $300+ an hour work while she was doing the $75 an hour work. That's a personal example. In the business world, what's the middle? For me, doing lead gen, like doing any type of lead gen for a business, I take the first 10%, create the templates, make sure it's in my voice, make sure it's in my tone. I find the prospect that I really want to market to. The middle 80% is taking those templates, finding that prospect and documenting an SOP, putting it into practice, making sure it's all finished. And then that last 10% is, let me just audit and making sure that it's actually being followed in my tone and in my voice. And it's like, cool, let's continue to push it out forward. The more we can think in those terms, the more time we're going to get back in that middle 80%.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that some folks who have been hesitant to delegate try to delegate the 100% and then they're dissatisfied with the outcome. And I say, because you have to sandwich that 10% on either side to make sure that it's successful. And I think that's something that gets missed a lot is we think people can read our minds and they definitely cannot.
No, we need playbooks. We need videos. Camcorder method is what he talks about in the book too. And it's, again, I think it's going to come from knowing that number. We got to know what that number is. And when we have that awareness and a quick exercise, Shannon, just anybody who's listening, you can do this. It's really easy. Okay. Number one, what during the next 12 months, how much money do you want to make? Or how much do you want to earn in 12 months? Put a number there. And then it's like, in exchange for that amount of money, how many hours a week do I want to work for that? And then how many weeks per year do I want to work for that? So there's 52 in a week. So I want to take 5 weeks off. Okay. 52 minus 5. Okay. There's how many hours in a week? I want to work 40 hours. Okay. 40 hours times, let's go 48 weeks. You do the math there and then take your target annual earnings divided by that number. It's going to give you $1 per hour. Now you have an awareness. That number might be 50, 75, 80, 100, 200, 300, 500, 1,000, whatever that number is. Now there's a benchmark. Now the next part of that is, if that's the benchmark, what are all the tasks that are underneath that hour amount, that $1 per hour amount, that somebody else might be able to do? Because from that lens, now I have awareness. And with that awareness, I could choose to still do it. But here's the thing, Shannon, most thought leaders and experts, they have this relationship with control. It's like, ooh, I want to control everything. So what I say is, I want you to be in control, but be in control of the activities that are either producing revenue or high value, and let somebody else be in control of the activities that either drain your energy or don't produce revenue, or somebody else can do for a fraction of what your wage is. And that's a great place to start, in my opinion.
I agree. And, focusing more on coaching through it or giving feedback or just refining it if you need to, as opposed to doing it all yourself, is going to just pay you back in dividends long term. Because even if somebody's not, you know, doing a great job at it day one, that's part of the development journey and part of utilizing these like systems and tools that we have to give them to enable them to do it better, faster, stronger, quicker. So let's talk about
how our team can utilize different systems and tools to do that. Because I think it's not just about buying back time and delegating our time out, right? But it's also managing the time and using the right processes and tools in order to optimize the time. So, can we talk about a little bit about how to optimize how we're spending our time and how our team is spending their time using the tools at our disposal?
Sure. So it's kind of like McDonald's. You want to McDonaldify your business in the sense where
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like very predictable and it's very simple. So that's a great place to start. So, how can I simplify my business process where it's clearly defined if thens? If this happens, then I want this to happen, and it's clearly defined in a playbook or an SOP, a standard operating procedure, some sort of documentation. And if there's not a clearly defined flow chart, I highly recommend you to build one. That's number one place to start. And just take the user experience. Who's the user? Doesn't matter whether it's a client or a prospect or a team member, like someone on your talent, roster, even yourself. Think about the user from the user's lens, starting point to like whatever the next checkpoint is. Build a flow chart of if thens between starting point and checkpoint. What are all the if thens that happen with the communication or transactions or change of hands or whatever? Create that process just like McDonald's. You go to the checkout, you pull up to the drive-through window, you give an order, you pull around to the window. It's like, if I place an order, then I drive around to the next part of the window. If I show up to that window, then they're going to ask me for money. If I pay them money, then I'm going to get my food, right? So it's like, it sounds so simple, but it's like, those are the if thens. And then we question, what type of team and tech can I put in place to collect the payment? Team and tech to deliver the food. And that's how McDonald's has been able to take a process and now have a fully digital operating McDonald's without any humans, because they've simplified the process so much using this if then. And thought leaders, experts, business owners, you can do the same thing in your business. So that's the place I would start.
Absolutely. And you don't know this about me, but I worked at McDonald's for 7 years.
Well,
And I
I do.
was like from the age of 14 through college. And when I left, I was like second in command, which I think I was like the judgment of these people to put this kid in charge of so much stuff. But I was like, I'm telling you, 100% every like successful thing I see in business, I go, that's how we did it. Like that's I always think about the science behind. I learned business. I learned working at McDonald's. So everything that I think about how they operate, down to how the schedule is done, down to the temperature everything has to be at, how long those, the nuggets can stay in the tray before you have to toss them. Like, and you know what's so funny is that they train so hard on that and make you learn the manual to learn all of that stuff so you can operationalize it. But also to this day, I think I remember some of those things because of how much they made you study it.
Mhm.
And while you don't have to be that militant about it in your business, I think that there's a version of that in the SOPs that will help dictate that for you as well, that will just help you guide. This is kind of how we produce and how we cook up our recipes so that somebody can be trained on it easily and be successful.
Need to. And that's the beautiful part, is McDonald's made it so simple that 17-year-old Shannon could actually go do it, and you don't need to hire someone at $50 an hour to do the job, because I've made the position so simple that I could hire someone for less than $50 an hour, as an example. And that's what we want to do. We want to simplify the tasks where AI and other humans can do it, and AI is getting smarter by the minute. So us as experts, we want to leverage that. We want to take advantage of that. We want to be on the cutting edge of that. An example I just used recently in a previous a podcast I was a guest on, I came up with a cell phone analogy where it's like, remember the first cell phone a lot of us had? If I'm 38, so it was like a flip phone, played Snake on it, right?
Yeah.
The whole purpose of the phone was just to make a phone call. But when the smartphone came out, the smartphone was like, for me, I was like the late majority. I'm like, nah, I don't need to buy a new phone. I'm not going to spend $1,000 for a phone. I'm just going to keep my flip phone. So I was like that late majority. But what happened is those innovators bought the phone, and then the early majority came and bought the phone, right? These people, the early adopters, bought the smartphone. And I was like this late majority. I was like, all right, I guess I'm supposed to hop on board, because why? At some point I saw GPS. Wow. I don't have to stop at a gas station or like get a map. I used to print off directions from MapQuest and I would go in my car and like that. And I was like, I don't need to do that anymore. I could just pull it up on my device. It didn't replace my phone. It made the experience so much better and easier and more efficient. That's what AI is doing. It's not replacing humans. It's allowing us to be that much more effective and in our positions that we're in by the minute to get the same outcome, but way less time. So I'm not going to preach to your audience to say, you got to hop on the AI bandwagon. But right now, if you don't surround yourself around other people who are using AI, there is going to be consequences. I do believe there's consequences to that. And especially in business, things move really fast.
I agree. And I'll preach to my audience and say that. I'll be the one to say it, guys. No, I really do believe this because I think that I think that while we don't understand, I don't think the full potential. I think it's really hard to wrap your head around the full potential of what this can do for a technology standpoint. But I think the utilization of it is still not understood and not instinctual. We're still just a year deep. I think OpenAI just celebrated ChatGPT's first birthday like yesterday.
Mhm.
And in thinking about where we've come in the last year, I think a lot of people are still theorizing it, like, if that's even the word, making it into a theory of how to use it and coming up with situations, but not really making it part of their habit yet. And that's one thing that we've tried to make a conscious effort to as a team is figure out on everything we're doing, how could we utilize AI to make this a little bit easier on ourselves or to open up some capacity? Do you recommend that there's a particular way that a business owner could start utilizing AI more often in their business?
I'm gonna give a little of a longer answer just because I feel compelled to. So just so everyone who's listening, maybe you know me, maybe you don't, but the longer version, I'm very much a like Google Sheets, like non-technical guy is how I built my business. So I was in direct sales for 20 years and I had my team. I had over 5,000 sales reps I've trained. We did over 19 million in sales. So I'm really like old school, grinded out type of business owner. Like that was my identity until I hired a business coach to show me like how to corporatize and learn all this stuff. When I hired that coach and he came and like audited my business, was like, you could have offshore workers do this task. So you could have these higher wage people do like more higher wage activities versus them doing admin. And you could have automation do this. I never even knew of Zapier. We put all these zaps in my business.
Zapier
and
is the hot
like,
glue of my business holding it together.
Now it is. I never even heard of it before. So like all these little like tech solutions and offshore team solutions, we put all that in. All under the umbrella is before I proposed to my wife. I knew I wanted to be a family man. I knew I wanted to have kids. I knew I wanted to be married because my dad owns a plumbing business. He works 6 days a week and like he missed a lot too many best basketball games. And I just didn't want to do that. So I wanted to have this foundation. Here's the why I want to make this point so clear. I put these practices in place in my business to buy back time. I had time freedom. We took an 18-day road trip, my wife and I, in the middle of COVID. Like we were able to like really enjoy life. I had freedom, financial. But then when our son was born, he was born at 1 pound, 4 ounces. So we ended up being in the hospital for 8.5 months with him. So 254 days. I didn't know this when I put these business systems in place, that was going to happen. But because I put those systems in place, because now this is before AI, but the concept is there, my business was able to run without me. And since the business was able to run without me, it still produced over 6 figures in profits without me there. So that's the birthplace of saying, wow, because I was willing to adapt before the circumstances hit, I was not only able to survive this circumstance. My son is thriving now where he got his trach out. He was fully vent dependent a year ago. We're talking about celebrating a year. 1 year ago, he was fully on a ventilator and had his trach. And 1 year later, he's off the ventilator. He's off. He has his trach out. He's doing unbelievable. We have our second child on the way right now. So we're really excited and things are great. And if I didn't work on my business when the sun was shining, when the circumstances were fine, my business wouldn't have survived without me for those 8.5 months a couple of years later. So if you're listening to this, I highly recommend you to not wait for circumstances to come your way, to put some of this AI tools in your business. If you have the capacity to work on your business for a few hours a week, start. So that's my long answer. My short answer is, where do you start? ChatGPT is pretty good. So I would start with prompts that you ask ChatGPT. Start with a prompt like, ChatGPT, ask me questions that I should be asking myself around fill in the blank. I want to create a marketing plan for my business. What are the questions you should ask me about how to create a marketing plan for my business? Question, and then answer those questions. Hey, ChatGPT, I want to create a social media content calendar for the next 30 days that drives my audience towards blank call to action. What is a good promo cycle that I could put into my calendar, or help me create a promo cycle for my social media posting calendar? Include LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and also include text and email for those I have their contact info for. I'd like to have value add. I'd like to have whatever it is, put that in there and see what it spits out. And then you could even say, put it in chart format for me so it's easier to read. So this is the ChatGPT is, I mean, I don't even use Google that much anymore. It's all ChatGPT. Hey, hey GPT, ask me how here's a fun one. Here's a really fun one. I want to do a grocery shopping list for my wife with 5 or less ingredients with macros for each meal under 500 calories with over 50 grams of protein and under 25 carbs. I want prep time for these meals to be under 20 minutes as well. Can you create 5 meals and also send me the grocery shopping list for me to be able to do this? Boom, spits it out. My VA goes to Instacart, bam, puts it in the Instacart. And then that final 10%, I'm like, do we have any of these ingredients at home already? No. Okay, cool. Bam, click the button. And then groceries delivered. So it's like, there's so many cool, creative ways that we could use it. That's my long and short and kind of long response to ways to begin.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I think that like you just using that in the use case of, grocery shopping I haven't thought of that, but there's nothing stopping any use case for it. And it's so creative because I think a lot of business owners are like, it can help me with copy. And I'm like, yes, it can. And it can help you with all of the other activities that are time consuming in your business and life, that it's not limited to the strict functionality that you've seen it's used for. I just think that people are using it in a one-dimensional way, in a sense, is just like, do this for me. But I love that you phrase the prompts, Mike, as ask me questions, because it's a conversation that you end up having back and forth that ends up driving the real result. I find is I actually have a conversation with it. And I don't know about you, but I'm actually like polite to it. I'm very polite to it, even though it doesn't matter. I could be a total B and it wouldn't even care. But I'm just like, could you please help me with this?
Same. It's very funny. Yeah. Same.
Yeah, I feel like I'm putting out good karma and I'm trying to get good results. And like maybe one day it will be nicer to the nice people. But I'm asking it for help with certain things. And that's a great use case. But I think that entrepreneurs are underutilizing it for just any time consuming activity.
I have more use cases if you want me to rattle off more. But
rattle off a couple more of like creative use cases for this, because I think this is really fun.
So other use cases is Tone Analyzer is my favorite, where it learns, like we have 65 clients that use our services, and all 65 are the ChatGPT knows their tone. So you take any form of writing that you've done before, blogs, emails, social media posts, if you wrote a book, transcription. So Shannon, for you, we take the transcription from this conversation, pull out Shannon's voice, put it into GPT and say, analyze Shannon's tone. Tell me what type of tone Shannon has. And it will do a full tone analyzer for you and say, okay, this is what your tone is. And then now that GPT has the tone, well, you could have your team, this is what our clients use our team for, but you could have your team now be you with your tone and respond as you for comments, emails, social media inbox, someone wants to get on your calendar, any of those types of things. Once it knows your tone, then it could write blogs for you. Then it could write, because it understands how you sound, which is really amazing. Like that in itself is a really good one. How else to use AI is these beautiful reels that a lot of people put on social media, like the video editing stuff. There's lots of AI softwares that can do that for you now too, where it's like you put the video, the raw full video, and say, give me 20 clips find the best moments from here and find those for me. And it'll say, all right, based on all the words that were being spoken during this conversation, these are the magic moments that I think they are. The AI finds the magic moments, and then your team goes through and says, all right, out of the 20, maybe these 12 are actually magic moments. It was a miss on these 8, but these 12 are pretty good. And then you could say, cool, with these, let's create captions and let's create hashtags that are optimized to the YouTube algorithm that are going to get the most views for these videos. And then we could use AI for that. So these are a couple other use cases using these other tools that are super, super relevant for those that are trying to create a brand for themselves or already have a brand for themselves, but want to make sure that we're creating even more content, because now I could take one long form video, chop it into 12 short form videos, repurpose them, and then take those short term form videos, take the transcriptions, put it into GPT, say, hey, can you create that 30-day content calendar using this transcription and these topics? Now from one long form video, we could chop it up and have a month's worth of content all using AI and having a team facilitate that while Shannon's doing a conversation on a podcast like this. So like, that's the benefit. You as the human can be where you are, but the AI version of you, your tone could be getting this stuff chopped up, and you have a team chopping up your voice and and using that to repurpose you so other people could be seeing you while you're hanging out with me. Like, and I say that to the audience, the listener, because I'm sure you're probably already doing a lot of this, but the listener, this isn't really complicated stuff. It's here and it's necessary, I would say.
I would agree. And I think it's one of these things, kind of like you were talking about with the smartphone, where you go, if you're not using it, you'll be left behind by those who are, and you won't be able to keep up with the amount of what's expected of you at a certain point. And it's just what's going to happen. I really do believe that, like, with our ability to create more content or to get more output, it's going to elevate the expectation people have of how much is out there. It's like, oh, you're posting once a week? I'm posting like 5 times a day with this, all this stuff. And with the same amount of time invested, which is what's crazy. And you're right. And actually, we're using all of those tools that you described. And fun fact, we have the ability to completely translate our episodes into other languages using my voice. And it's super cool to reach more people. And it's funny? We translated one of my episodes into Spanish. Now, I speak Spanish fluently. And I said, just for kicks, let me listen. I was equally like terrified and impressed, as you should be with AI. I was like, oh my God, that is me. And my husband listened to it and he was like, when did you record that? And I thought, oh God, this is really happening. So there's so many potential use cases for this. It's insane. I will say, let's talk about where people should focus the implementation of these things, because Dan Martell, you just mentioned, it was like outsourcing the admin and then the marketing and sales, and then it was the client fulfillment, right? Do you recommend a similar progression in how you're implementing AI?
Yeah, for sure. In exactly that order. I would look at all the administrative that you are currently dealing with. What is considered admin? I mean, we could go down the list of social media posts, reminder messages, even payroll, inbox management for your email, and also your inbox for your social medias, any type of customer service requests, any type of internal communication to your team, any update in your CRM or your database, any type of reports, creating any type of reports, managing appointments, prospect research, engagement on social media, like comments, engagement, those types of things. I mean, these are just a few that immediately pop up. You might even go into like lead nurturing or anything with lead gen might potentially fall under administrative. Yeah, these maybe even transactions on the back end might fall under admin, because admin can kind of fall into marketing and client success or delivery or fulfillment. But I would take all of those, make a giant list. And at the end, I'll give a quiz as a gift, betterthanrich.com/quiz. But on the back end of that quiz, there'll be like a time audit workbook that they'll be sent. And that it's like a 20-page time audit workbook. In that workbook, we'll go through all of these tasks for you to see, okay, what are all the administrative tasks that I have on my plate right now? And you can go through all of them. And from there, that leads to the second question. The second question being, where can I leverage AI to do some of these things for me as me, but it just has to be done, doesn't have to be done by me. So how can I leverage AI and a team? Because those two really need to go hand in hand, because that 10-80-10, 10% started by a human, 80% done by AI, 10% finished by a human, right? Like there's still that 80-10-80-10 with the AI, but that human doesn't necessarily have to be you as the business owner. It could be a virtual assistant or your executive assistant doing that, or your operations team. So I would take that list, I would do the time audit, I would go through all these administrative tasks, these lower hanging fruit areas of your business, and figure out, okay, which are the ones that drain my energy, which are the ones that AI can help me with. And again, we could go into the weeds on this, but I know we want to keep these episodes a little tight, but I could go into like specifics on some of the weeds if it makes sense too.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to go through a few examples of how you and your clients have seen success by implementing some of this. And I have to call this out too, Mike, that I love that you mentioned the 10% done by a human, 80% done by AI, and then 10% done by a human, and implementing that sort of concept, because I think that there's going to be an overuse of the 100% done by AI copy paste. And I think that there's still an element of use it as a tool, use it as a shortcut to get to the final result. But ultimately, even though we use AI to do a lot of the heavier writing in our business, I'm still reviewing every single email and making sure it sounds like me and it's what I would have said. I'm still making sure that, and I'm giving it feedback, but I'm making sure that everything that goes out there is something that I would write and I'm comfortable sending. There's nothing I'm not aware of. And I think that's how we stay grounded and on top of what's going out there in our voice.
I think that's the piece. Like you could see, it's almost like, that sounds like really like ChatGPT-ish. Like that sounds like AI. And you don't want to
Yeah.
lose that. It does. It's got to pass the sniff test. What's interesting is who your client is. So listener, think about who your avatar is. And if your avatar is fairly intelligent, it's got to pass their sniff test of, is this real? Like, is this really, or is this a bot, or is this AI? And that's why there's a little bit of that human touch that is needed. If we just completely offload it to AI, it might lose its human flavor. And I think that's the concern. And that was the concern for me, at least, until I really started implementing a couple of these things. So I'll give you a couple of real examples. So if we wanted to do a 10-80-10, let's think which is going to be most relevant for your audience. Give me an example of who is the avatar, just so I could really make sure there's give me an
Let's say
example of an avatar.
early stage business owner trying to build a personal brand online. Let's say we talk about a form of marketing or outreach, something like that might be a really common use case.
Okay, so this is good. So if you're starting a brand, let's say we want to do some outreach, some cold outreach. Could we agree this
Mhm.
person might want to do some cold outreach?
Yeah, I actually have an idea.
Okay.
Podcast pitching. Like they want to get
Okay.
on more podcasts. They want to be able to get on more podcasts and interview, and they need some help doing that.
Oof. Well, this is something that we specialize in here, Shannon. So that's how I'm here right now. So peeling back the curtain full tilt here. This is good. That's how I'm here right now. So what's the 10-80-10? So the 10% the humans would be going to research podcasts that I would want to be a guest on. So what are the types of podcasts I would want to be a guest on? So there's scraping tools a human would do, finding them off the web. We have a database of a bunch of area of people. And then from that 10%, we would also, in the 10% would be creating templates, make sure it sounds good, and then putting all of that through AI. This is where the AI comes into play. AI, watch this episode for me and tell me what the biggest takeaways were from this episode, and putting the transcription of the episode. If we don't have the, whatever, depending on what tool you're doing, they get a review. Okay, this is what the episode was about. Cool. Help me write a review for that podcast of what would be, catchy, but human, that feels good. That's the middle 80%. And then the final 10%, let's make sure it actually sounds human. Take that review, put the finishing touches, and then send a review to that podcast host, letting them know we really like their show, and letting them know, hey, I'd like to be a guest on that show. I thought it was really good. I'd like to be a guest. Here's some of my accolades. I'd love to have you consider me to be a guest on your show. That would be an example of like a 10-80-10. But the heavy lifting on that middle 80% was listen. How long would it take for a human to listen to a podcast episode? The episode's 30 minutes. So that's 30 minutes of time to listen to it, to draw out the takeaways, to write a review for that. That middle 30 minutes just took 3 minutes, and the 10 on each side, maybe those took like a little bit more creative juices, but we were able to take a process that might have typically taken a couple of hours to taking more, in the minutes to be able to reach out to hosts. So we do that for probably have about a dozen to a dozen and a half clients that we do that for, because that is a need in the marketplace right now. To like, how can I connect with more hosts of podcasts, or not even just podcasts, but anyone who has a captive audience? How can I connect with people who have a captive audience? And I've been doing even like workshops and intimate groups, Facebook groups, social media lives, real estate office meetings. Just I've been zooming into meetings. I'm on a kick right now. I'm speaking a lot. So I'm doing 100 of these messages between September and March. So right now I'm on 30. So I have 70 more to go. So this process that is shared with you is something that my team is doing for me and doing for other students and clients of what we're doing. But I love the question, because hopefully the listener is hearing that and saying, oh, wow, number one, there's a process to this. Number two, I could have a team and a tech do a lot of this for me. And number three, if I could be on more episodes, more shows, that could help me with my brand and spread my word and connect with more people and reach more people. There's a win all around.
Yeah. And I think the skill in identifying this, Mike, is what result you want and being clear about that. And then going back into, well, what has to happen for that result to be real? And then we go into, well, in those tactical steps, how much of it do I really have to be doing? And then that's where you really kind of discover the gold.
Yeah. And what's nice is if you have like, I joined a community that I paid 10 grand to join, this accelerator community, to like help me learn some of this stuff so then I could apply it. So it's cutting down that learning curve dramatically for me. So that way I don't have to come up with all the answers. I could source the answers from other people who already figured them out, which is really nice. I mean, that's what I love about all of us, Shannon. We're all in this game together. We're just playing a really large game called business. And there's those that are wanting to play the game at a high level. They pay very much attention. Those that want to just be on, YouTube University and learn as they go and just really dabble. Well, it just sometimes takes a little bit longer for them to get from where they are to where they want to go. But that either way, it depends on the objective. Like, what is the outcome? Kind of like you just said, is your outcome to go far? Is your outcome to go fast? Is it just a passion that you're like, I just want to like scratch the itch and say that I have cool, like, things I've learned? I don't know the outcome, but whatever it is, highly recommend you to get clear on that first. And then all of these tools can really start filling in some of the gaps for you. For me, I wanted time freedom. I wanted to be a family man. I wanted to, be able to be here, like I mentioned, with my wife, our kids, and I wanted my time freedom. And since that moment that we left the hospital and she became a full-time medical mom, and I had chose to replace her income, from that moment of desperation in September 10th of 2021 until now, we're recording this December of 2023, a little bit over 2 years, been able to generate. I mean, we've saved right now over 32,000 hours for business owners by using these systems, and generate, as of October, was over $770,000 in revenue just from desperation of figuring out, how can I add value to the marketplace? What is a way to add value to the marketplace, solve problems for people? That's beautiful. Like, that's the game of business, which is awesome. And I think it could be fun if people allow it to be a game.
I agree. And I think that if you also allow yourself to be open to changing the way you see or do something, or getting out of the way that you're used to doing it, or the only way or path forward to that goal is the way that's familiar, I think you have to expand beyond that and figure out what is the best way to do it, not just what's the most familiar. And that's going to help you drive that path forward. Now, Mike, really quick, how can folks find out more about your quiz that you mentioned earlier? I know that you said that you have that available if people are looking to learn more.
Yeah, betterthanrich.com/quiz. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to, continue a conversation with those that want to, Shannon. I appreciate that. And we will give you tremendous value. You take the quiz. It's 10 questions. Each question, by the way, is a really good journal prompt in itself. Even if you don't want to like care about your results, but just answer the questions of how do you start your day? What are the goals of your business 3 to 5 years from now? What would you like to see? If you have a task on your plate, how do you approach that task? Right? Like these are a couple really good questions. It just gives you some answers. It's a 2-minute quiz, betterthanrich.com/quiz. And then at the end, it'll give you a result. If you want to play full out, you could take that result and that score. We have a Facebook group with 1,300 people in it. You could take a screenshot and share the score, and there's some conversations in there around it. That's totally cool. But ultimately, that will trigger some emails to you based on your style with PDFs, videos, workbooks, time audits, different resources, ChatGPT prompts. I mean, we have tons and tons of resources that will send your way on the other end, depending on your style. And then on the other end, if you feel like you want to have a longer conversation with us or really be curious a little bit more to dig into how could you leverage AI-informed virtual assistants to kind of help you buy back your time, we do have a services. We'd love to talk to you about that if it makes sense.
Okay, fantastic. So guys, check that out. One more time, the URL for everybody listening.
betterthanrich.com/quiz.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike, for sharing all of your knowledge with everybody listening today. And guys, definitely check out that quiz and what Mike's up to. One of the things that holds people back from starting their business and going all in on it to grow it is this hesitation around setting it up properly or cleaning things up to make sure everything is legally and compliantly sound. Between setting up the actual business legally and knowing how to manage the money, there's a lot that can intimidate somebody and scare them into not starting. And that's why I bundled up my 5 best resources all together for brand new business owners or for anyone who's looking to clean things up. This is my 5-day mindset refresh because you know it always starts with mindset, and my business financial quick starter, which is my starter course for anyone looking to start a business with all the key elements you need to do in order. My tax deduction guide with hundreds of deductions you can take for your business today. My Money Pro matchmaker on how to find the right professional for you, and my cash flow forecasting mini course. This is the ultimate Swiss Army knife. It includes tools and templates, everything you need to get started on your business successfully or clean things up if you feel like you've fallen behind. Grab your copy right now. The Small Business Starter Kit is yours for free using the link in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating and review on your podcast platform. This small action goes a long way for podcasters to get our message heard by more business owners just like you. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to information about our guests and ways to get in touch with me. We'll see you on the next episode.